Hi, I'm Neil Sackmary.
Hi, I'm State Trooper Sean Hagstrom with the Nevada State Police Highway Patrol Division, PEIO. Please stay tuned for the next episode of Trooper Talk.
And together, we can make a difference.
Here we are live at the 360 Vegas studios. We have this edition of Trooper Talk. We have Trooper Slater here, and we have Trooper Hagstrom. And so here's what I'm going to tell you. I was just going to tell you this off the air, but I wanted to tell you on the air. Lady came in the other day to the store, and she said that her daughter is now the assistant chief in Washington.
Okay.
Okay? And that they are loving Trooper Talk, and that they watch
Washington?
every episode. No, here.
Okay, they come out there. Okay.
They live here.
Okay.
And they watch every episode.
Great.
And so she goes, I just want to tell you that Trooper Donaldson is a legend. And she said that they watched the episode, and they told them up in Washington, and now he's like a movie star. And he was like this superhero before, right? And then he moved down here, right? And so what I'm going to say to you is this. When we have the troopers come on, it means so much to the troopers. Like, what people don't realize is that they have to work like all night, catching bad people, getting their mind racing and all this type of stuff. And then they donate their time to come in here to film because they care that much about the city to donate their time, because they don't want to be stopping these people with the DUIs and all this. They would rather just work their shift.
It'd be nice.
It would be
very nice. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the good things is we have Trooper Slater here. He's one of our top 3 DUI guys. I mean, he came in second. He had 164 DUIs this last year. Incredible. But these guys are out there dedicated, trying to not only promote safety, and later today we're going to talk a little bit about marijuana and poly drug use, because Donaldson did the alcohol last show that we had. So we want to expand it and kind of explain more what's going on with the other side of impaired driving. So I think it's going to be a great show having Slater here. He'll be able to explain everything for us on that.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what I was going to say is what an honor to have you here. Because
hey, happy to be back. It was a great episode a couple episodes back when we were able to do it. So I'm excited.
Me too. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you donate your time. You're out there, in the mess of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, with these people who don't care.
Yes.
And they put their lives on the line because they don't care, but they don't take into account the people that they can hurt or kill, or the families that they, all the trickle-down effect is not because one person decided to drive a car.
Yep.
And again, this morning, I look in the newspaper, right, and, a guy in a Dodge Charger, in North Las Vegas, right, killed someone because he was driving reckless in a car again. I mean, that's not what you, but I'm just saying, it's like, it's an honor to have you here.
Oh, happy to be here.
So, talk to us about last night. I mean, like,
Yeah, so last night I had 3 DUIs.
that's in one night.
Yeah.
Is that incredible? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so last night I had 3 DUIs. It was the first DUI was going 96 miles an hour. It was in a Tesla, so 96 miles an hour in a Tesla. His car, when the car got pulled over, marijuana bellowed out of the car, so the smoke came out of the car. So obviously they were smoking and driving. When I talked to him, he had bloodshot, watery eyes. Obviously the signs and characteristics of impairment. And then we go on to do the field sobriety test, and obviously he did not do well because he was driving under the influence. And then he went to jail. And then my next one right after that was practically right after that. I'd just left the jail, saw a car make a lane change without using a turn signal, had a couple other equipment violations, and go up to the car, and she was high on multiple drugs, so more likely than not meth and and heroin or meth and oxycodone of some form. And then my third one was alcohol and drugs. So polydrug use is
Polydrug use.
polydrug use is very, very popular. And what it is that the one drug that they're consuming is not enough, so they have to consume other drugs. What it really comes down to is they're trying to self-regulate. So your body is homeostasis. So your body is going like this all day long. It's trying to level out, right? So when you use drugs, it causes your body to go either down or up, depending on what drug you're using. So what the drug user tries to do is create the natural homeostasis with drugs. But it doesn't work because it's an extreme on both ends. So it's not like it cancels it out. It just causes that extreme with whichever drug is psychoactive at the time.
And I mean, I watched the TV show, right, where they follow the police all the time on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that they always talk about these minor violations that turn into these big like these big things for a person. You know what I mean? Like, oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know that your tail light isn't working, and it's a simple thing. I just wanted to let you know, please get it fixed so that somebody doesn't hit you from behind.
Right.
And all of a sudden, and I can't, this person, when we were talking about the Trooper Donaldson, they were like, why do these people smoke with billowing smoke out of their car? They think, oh, marijuana's legal, so that means that I can be smoking whatever I want and doing whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And the poly drug thing, which we learned, when was that? Like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 episodes or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I brought that up because this is nothing new, Neil. This is something that when I was working in Vegas 20 years ago, we started seeing a bigger trend of oxycodone and alcohol. And now, where it's really expanding, we legalize marijuana. And of course, everybody should know that, if you're going to consume marijuana, it needs to be at your residence, or if you're in a business atmosphere, you never get in a car or drive. I mean, it's just, people don't understand, and I've talked to Slater about this before, and he knows that, and we brought up your show back in the 60s, 70s, that ditchweed and stuff, the THC levels and all the way they smoked marijuana back then is nothing compared to the THC levels of today. I mean, they're growing these plants, they're making with high THC levels, and he could probably get into it a little bit more, but it's not what it used to be 20, 30, 40 years ago. So things have really changed a lot. So
and that's what I was going to say. So people feel that they come out to Las Vegas to enjoy the atmosphere, right? And drinking, just as a thing, is part of the gambling atmosphere, right? You drink and you smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
And so now we've added something there, which just opened. I saw in the news, one of these lounges.
Yeah, the weed lounges.
Weed lounge, okay? And so you can't go in there and get messed up and then I'm going to leave and get in my car.
Right. Yeah,
you're there.
What I would always encourage people to do is if you're planning on going out and having a good time, I'm not saying don't go have a good time, just plan accordingly before you start. So if you want to go and smoke and drink and do whatever you're doing, Uber to the location that you're going, because that then forces you to Uber back. Because if you don't have a car to go out to, you can't drive a car. Mm-hmm. So plan accordingly before you go out and have your fun.
That's what we talked about last week, too.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about planning ahead, even with speeding?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you have to be at a place at a certain time, everything is about planning ahead. I mean, if you're going to have, and like you said, we don't want you not to have a good time. Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world, and we want people to come out here and have a great time. Just don't get impaired, or if you feel different using something or drinking, don't get in that car and drive. That's all we're asking. Just don't drive a vehicle. There's too many ride shares out there. There's taxi service, buses, RTC, that can take you anywhere you want to go in the city.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about ruining not only your life, but somebody else's life by either injuring or killing somebody. So that's what we're asking everybody. Hey, just kind of watch out what you're doing, but have a good time. Enjoy Vegas. That's what you're here for.
The other thing too is that there's programs that, let's say you did take your car out and then you started drinking or smoking or whatever, then there's programs that will come pick you and your car up and bring you home. And
Oh.
so like that's another service that's offered if you're like, oh, I don't want to leave my car at this place.
Yeah.
Then they have services that will come and pick
Well, that's
you
cool. I
and
didn't
your
know
car
that.
up too. And there's also all the ride shares, obviously, the Ubers, the Lyfts, everything else. I haven't seen an Uber over $60, and I guarantee I would rather pay that $60 than take a life.
Or
And I think
spend
that
10
that
or
would be fair.
15 for an attorney just to
Exactly.
get started out where you're going to be going.
And then the other thing too is that a lot of people, what they don't realize is that when you're drinking alcohol or using drugs, the first thing to go is your judgment. So when you take that first drink, your judgment's already fading. So that's why you might feel okay, but you aren't okay. You're still impaired.
And Miss Stevenson from the front office, when she came, everybody loved because she talked all about the front office and what people have to do for the crashes and all that. But she even went one step further and said that she has a backup to a backup plan. Like when she goes out with the friends, like she has a backup plan, and then she has a backup plan to the backup plan, and like, you know what I mean? Like if she lost the phone and she couldn't do, she has a backup plan. You know, like
That's great.
All these things that we should do. And so when we talk about the marijuana now, so let's get into that a little bit more. So there's different types, like so.
Yeah. And he could tell you all the different types.
Let's go into that because here's what I'm going to say to you. There definitely is someone that is coming here on vacation that is of an elder status that maybe has tried something when they were younger and said, oh, I'm just going out to Las Vegas, and you know, they don't realize, or they have peer pressure from their friends even though they're older. You know, who knows?
Yeah. So with marijuana, the very first thing that we'll talk about is that the level of THC that's in marijuana now. So marijuana back in the 60s had 5 to 12% THC. Like that was, the 12% was the really, really good weed, but ditch weed was like 2%, anything like that didn't really have a lot of THC concentration because the THC is what makes you high. Nowadays, you can't find marijuana that doesn't have at least 12%, like minimum of a 12%. Oh. And then most marijuana nowadays is anywhere from 20 to like 35% for the regular flower. And then you also have the waxes. So the waxes are concentrated THC, and it's just THC. And those can be up to 100% THC. And so when you're talking about, and then like the vape pens and everything else. So those vape pens, on the packaging, it says, take one hit. Well, have you ever seen?
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Have you ever seen anybody take one hit of a vape? No, it's just like saying take one drag of a cigarette. It doesn't happen.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to finish the cigarette. Just like with vapes, you're not going to have one hit of the vape. You're going to have several hits of the vape.
Right.
And so with that is, so marijuana breaks up into two strains. So there's sativa and indica. So sativa is the upper. That's the people in their mind, they feel like they're active and they can go out and do things. And I talk to a lot of like performers who say that they use it to help them feel active and awake and all of that. And then indica is couch. That's the way that we remember it, right? And that's the as seen on TV weed.
Okay.
But in the body, they're both stimulants. So it's a stimulant inside the body, so it still raises your blood pressure, it still raises your heart rate, it still raises everything else inside the body. And so when people say, oh, I smoke weed for my anxiety, it's like, well, that's kind of broken because marijuana is a stimulant. And if you have anxiety and a stimulant, obviously those two things don't go together very well. But what a lot of people will do is they'll take their, let's say they'll take their anxiety medication and then they take their marijuana. Well, now that's that poly drug use that we were just talking about, and we have the impairment as a factor. It's just like when you're misusing your prescription medication. You know, your prescription medication for, let's say, Xanax, because we were talking about like antidepressants and stuff like that. So Xanax, typically it says take one piece. Well, because Xanax is cut up into is 4 pieces on a bar. So it'll say like take one piece or take half as needed for your anxiety.
The bar.
It's a bar, and But what a lot of people will do is, because they've been taking Xanax for a long period of time, is they'll take the whole bar. Well, you're not supposed to take the whole bar. You're supposed to take the half or the one piece. And then they'll have a glass of wine. And so Xanax is a depressant. So Xanax is a depressant. They have their glass of wine that's a depressant. And now they're like essentially very drunk off of that one glass of wine, for lack of better words.
I see on the TV show they always talk about the Xanax bar.
The
Yeah.
Xanny bar.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell are these people talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, they go to the bar and they have Xanax. Like, I didn't. So now
That's
it
right.
makes sense.
More clear, yeah.
So the poly drug thing, okay? And I want to continue this. I texted him the other day because he got woken up. I don't know what time he exactly got woken up, but at 4, they said that they talked to him at 4:15 in the morning. Because of the crash that happened,
Fatal crash, yeah.
right?
Involving a DUI.
And
yeah.
I saw in the newspaper, in the thing when I woke up in the morning, and I looked, and it said, as per, Trooper Sean Hagster, and I'm thinking, so here's a guy that came back that wants to do everything he can for the community. And like is out there, he's trying. He never did this particular job before, and he's making commercials now. He's going on TV shows. He's talking to the media. He's doing all these things, and then he has to wake up and his wife, right? Because the family and all this thing, at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah.
And whether he's on the phone or on the laptop or driving there, again, we'll talk about the take-home car, one of the benefits of that, right? But, the point is that, you have to do all these things at 4 o'clock in the morning because someone made the wrong choice. And they decided not to take all of these things that are offered to them, ride shares, buses, friends, this, all this. And not only they killed someone, but all these tragic things had to happen that didn't need to happen in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and that's why we're all here today. And we thank you, Neil, for getting that message out because it's just an ongoing problem. I mean, we live in Vegas. It is a party town, but this is why we're always trying to get the message out. Hey, don't drive impaired. I mean, I don't know how many times we got to nail it and try to get it out to the public, but people are still doing it nonstop, and it's just selfish to, this is what I want to do, and it doesn't matter, and I'm going to do whatever. We don't care what other people think, and they just go out and drive. But look at what happened to this person. Now he's looking at murder, because it is. I mean, you're driving, like I said, a 4,000 pound vehicle. And you're speeding or whatever. I can't talk about the crash itself.
No, of course.
But,
but
let's say that
you
ended up killing somebody.
Scenario, right.
And now you just ruined your life. And another person that is a community member, it could have been a mom or somebody's daughter, somebody that's not going home for the holidays, for the next holidays coming up, Easter's coming up. And this family's going to have to think about their daughter that was killed. And well, I would like to say more about it, but killed senselessly because somebody chose to just go out and drink or become impaired and drive and when we know better than doing this.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. I can't fathom how many times that we try to tell people, just don't do it. We have everything available to you. We're not saying not have a good time, but use the resources that Vegas has provided for you to use a ride share, buses and everything. We talk about it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And we want to talk very specifically to the fact that we're not talking about any type of investigation that's ongoing
sure. Can't do it.
or anything like that. We're just talking in the general senses. You talk, and you said something that we've never talked about before, which is someone being selfish. I say people don't care. If you want to die, jump off a bridge, land in a body of water, and just float down the river. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we do care. We try to
No,
say
no,
it, but I get what you're saying.
I'm
absolutely.
saying from my standpoint, right?
Absolutely.
Like instead of taking someone's life, right? What I wanted to ask you was this. So you pull someone over, and you suspect them of DUI or under the influence or a problem or anything like this, right? And now you know that they're under the influence, right? Like you're an expert, so you know that,
Right.
right? Do you get an arrogance from a person? Because when I watch the TV shows and I always see the people sometimes being like sort of not nice, right? Like, why are you pulling me over and all this, right? But I found that people are very nice. And then all of a sudden, as soon as they have to get pulled out of that car, right? And they're not the same person.
Yeah. I mean,
And so my reason for saying that is this. You're an expert. If you are under the influence and someone like and you're doing your job, right? Like you can't put someone else's life in danger because you have to start running down a highway after someone because they're doing something even worse.
Right. I think so. I'll talk to two parts, I guess. So the first thing that I think that we have an issue with as a culture right now is that they see videos on Facebook or social media that they could just tell the cops that they aren't going to get out of the car and then that's going to work.
Right.
And the whole thing about it is that it doesn't. Like, I'm not going anywhere just because you told me that you're not impaired. Like, I have to verify. I have to make sure that you aren't impaired. Like, I can't just take your word for it and call it a day because then you'll go down the road and kill somebody.
Right.
So whenever I get somebody who is trying to make the decision that they don't want to get out of the car, typically I can convince them to do what I want them to do. Because I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at getting them to do what I want. Every once in a while, they choose the other option, which isn't good for them. But they get out of the car, and then they end up going to jail anyway. Now, with people who... I mean, every once in a while, you get the still get the people who are like, I'm not high, I know myself, and blah, 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 blah. But again, that's all associated with that impaired judgment. It all starts with the impaired judgment. Because when you're drinking or using drugs, your judgment goes first, then everything else. So I don't ever get like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person thought that they weren't impaired. It's just a kind of a factor in the whole thing. Like I know that there's some people who believe that they're fine to drive because they think because they're always drunk and high.
They've been doing it for so long.
Like I had a person who he was failing to maintain his lane. He was speeding. Driving all over the road. It was a reckless call. And long story short, I arrested him. He yelled at me all the way to the jail. And then when I sat him down to do the blood draw, after I had to get a search warrant, when I sat him down to do the blood draw, he was like, yeah, I'm always drunk and high. I never drive sober. And so I had to explain to him that obviously he's going to kill somebody and he needs to stop doing that. And he needs to find a ride share or some other way to get around town. If you can't manage to be sober enough to drive a car, then don't drive at all. Yeah. Especially since,
That's the meaning of being selfish right there.
Right.
Not caring about anybody else but myself. And we see it too many times. I mean, there are people out there, they could care less what happens as long as they're getting their alcohol or drugs or whatever. And I'm sure Slater could tell you that too, and probably a lot of people at Metro, once they get addicted to drugs, and not only alcohol and everything, everybody else comes second nature. All they are chasing that next high or getting drunk because it makes them feel good again, and it's a never-ending cycle until they either kill themselves or somebody else.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that on the other show that I watch was when they go into the jail, which that's how I want to talk to you about that, right? Yeah. The people that are messed up, they go, look, you're too messed up. Go over in that jail cell for 6 to 8 hours until you sober up. And the person is a lunatic before they go in there. And then they let them sober up. And then all of a sudden, they're like a normal human. Like they actually can have a conversation. And like and the funny thing, not funny, but in a cynical way, I guess.
That's why you watch the show.
Is they right, because after they come out, they always apologize. They always go over to the officer and they go, look, I don't know what I was like 6 hours ago. And they're like, oh, man, you were screaming it out. And they're like, look, I'm just telling you, like, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, what I want to know
Again,
is
that's
this.
a judgment.
Judgment. Let's talk about a place that no one wants to go. Okay, we asked the Trooper Donaldson about the jail. Okay, your synopsis when you go to the jail. One of the things that we learned when he was on here is that he said that you can take the biggest, strongest man in the world or woman, and as soon as apparently these metal gates come down and this car is locked in there, that's the end of the game.
Yep.
And so he's, it was very scary. Like, I'm getting the goosebumps because, like, I see it on this TV show. They have some of these places, and it's like you see, and like that's the end of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Talk to us about when you, in a generalized scenario, right?
Of course.
You pull someone over, you suspect them of DUI. They could be the nicest person in the world, but listen, they're going in there, and it's not a very nice place.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I've yet to find somebody who's excited to go to jail. Every person that a lot of people that I arrest, I don't want to go to jail. I'm like, well, no one wants to go to jail, but that is the end result to the poor decision making. So when you get down to the jail, I mean, you're there for a mandatory 12-hour hold. There's no exception. And then after that 12 hours is once your process starts to leave. So it's typically
After 12 hours.
Yeah, yeah. So it's typically that 24-hour mark that you actually get to leave the jail. So that means that you're there with all the other people, and there's no separation. Like they don't separate the DUIs and the murderers and all of that. It's everybody sits together. They're all together to sit there and process through, and then also on a side note too, when they are acting up and they're not playing well with others, then they get side-celled, which means that they get put into a cell on their own. And when that happens, their process stops. So that 12 hours essentially pauses because they weren't able to play well with others. And then once they are able to, then they're 12 hours, and then they're processed out. So that's what a lot of people don't understand is that once you start acting up and not listening to the corrections officers, not listening to whatever the sergeants and everybody else is telling you to do, they'll just stop your process. Because if you're not going to cooperate with the process, then the process just stops. Because they aren't going to force you to cooperate. They're just going to put you on timeout. And then once you're feeling more cooperative, then they'll work through the process because they have to process you in so that they can process you out. And if you don't want to process in, well, then you're paused.
That's on you.
And so you get that. So then it's always the time. A lot of people think that they'll just get into a drunk tank with a lot of like other drunk people. That's not how it works. We throw everybody in the same place. There's no separation, other than the females go with the females, the males go with the males. Other than that, that's the only separation that they have. And every level of crime, from traffic warrant to murder of whoever, is all together. And then you have the meals, which aren't, it's jail food. It's a slice of bread, some bologna, and for lunch, and then for breakfast it's cereal.
Gentlemen, thanks a lot for coming in, and we'll see you real soon.
Thank you,
okay?
Neil.
All right, see you later.